The paedophile rock star Ian Watkins could have been caught nearly 4 years earlier if South Wales Police had investigated the case properly. The Independent Police Complaints Commission says that officers in South Wales missed a series of chances to stop the Lostprophets singer's abuse of children in the years before he was arrested. Well, obviously last week, South Yorkshire Police were also reprimanded for their failings in handling the case. Sky's Laura Bundock has more.
Ian Watkins was a highly dangerous and manipulative paedophile. The details of his child abuse were shocking. But what's also alarming is how the police failed to investigate complaints about him. Among them, one from an ex-girlfriend who said Watkins had texted her describing how he wanted to harm children. But a report by the police watchdog finds officers in South Wales didn't examine her phone. The force refused requests for an interview, but released this statement.
Today's report highlights a number of failings in which information about Ian Watkins was investigated between 2008 and 2012, which the force entirely accepts and regrets. South Wales Police failed to listen and properly investigate information about Watkins' offending behaviour. For this, we are truly sorry.
Between the end of 2008 and September 2012, South Wales Police received 8 reports and 3 intelligence logs from 6 different people that made a number of very serious allegations about Ian Watkins' paedophile activity. But Ian Watkins was free to offend throughout that time because South Wales Police missed one opportunity after another.
Last week, the South Yorkshire force was also criticised for missing opportunities in the investigation. The NSPCC says it's vital all recommendations are acted on.
This is a pretty damning report, and it should be a wake-up call for those involved, both within the police in South Wales, but also for all agencies that are involved in child protection, to make sure that they listen to complainants and take them seriously.
Ian Watkins was jailed for 29 years in 2013. But we now know he could have been brought to justice much earlier had the police properly acted. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
In fact, in the end, it was a drugs raid that led to his arrest, but really drugs offences were the very least of it. I remember being at his first court appearance in Magistrates Court, and what we didn't know then, but we do know now, is that there was this timeline of nearly 4 years of opportunities missed by police to get him in the dock rather sooner and to end what the judge who finally sentenced him to 29 years in jail called behaviour that was plumbing the depths of depravity. There were clanging alarm bells surrounding Ian Watkins. This IPCC report today highlights the fact that for so long the police turned a deaf ear to them.
So tell us more about these complaints. How many were there and what were they saying?
Well, I've got a copy of the report here, and it pinpoints what it calls major shortcomings in terms of the police investigation, if you can call it that, certainly for over a 4-year period into Ian Watkins. The main complainant was Joanne Majelix. Now, she went to police repeatedly. First of all, in 2008, she took, said she had on her mobile phone, she had a message from Ian Watkins saying he wanted to abuse children. Now, the report finds the police didn't look at that phone. They simply didn't believe Joanne Majelix. They didn't think she was a credible witness. But in fact, there were 6 people who went to police with concerns about Ian Watkins, and this report finds that there were 8 reports, there were 3 intelligence logs, but actually 0 interviews with Ian Watkins. He wasn't arrested over that period, he wasn't questioned, he wasn't asked what he thought about the allegations. Let's hear now from the Commissioner who compiled today's report.
Bias, whether unconscious or conscious, has no place in modern policing. When someone comes forward with such a serious allegation, or indeed any allegation or report, it really shouldn't matter what they look like, who they are, what their lifestyle is, what they do. What's really important is what are they saying. And it's really important that's taken seriously and that some investigative work is done to see if there's any independent evidence to corroborate what they're saying.
So, Marks, what has been the police response to this?
Sorry, in a word. South Wales Police say that they didn't listen, they didn't properly investigate the complaints over that time, and that they are truly sorry. Now, there was one detective sergeant who faced a disciplinary hearing for gross misconduct. He was cleared at that hearing. Separately from this, there was also an IPCC report that came out last week into South Yorkshire Police, and that report criticised their inaction in terms of investigating Ian Watkins, because Joanne Majelix went to them too, and that report found that there were 3 officers who would have faced disciplinary action at South Yorkshire. They would have, except that they've since retired, so they can't. And just going back to this report into South Wales Police, I'm just looking at the timeline of events, the summary of the complaints about him, and it says on various points, no action taken, no action taken, no action taken. Well, finally, the police did take action, but 4 years late.
Mark, thank you for updating us on that. Well, we can now speak to Michael Walkine QC. He defended Joanne Majelix. Thank you ever so much for coming in. I know that Joanne didn't feel well enough to come and talk to us today, but I know you've spoken to her about this report. What's her reaction to it?
Degree of satisfaction. She's disappointed on a personal level. There's no apology to her. It's probably time for South Wales to respond with an apology which shows their integrity and to speak with grace about how they disregarded her. But it brings back these events, not as if she forgets them ever. Every day, she tells me, she cries for no obvious reason. Actually, the reasons are obvious. She was disregarded. She was someone who was defamed, written off as because of her less than conventional lifestyle. Maybe it wasn't a steady lifestyle.
She was a former sex worker?
Yes, she was a former sex worker, and so what? And she was wrongly accused during the trial of having been sectioned, mental health section. That wasn't true. And so to face a jury with a person who comes from that sort of background was difficult. Their starting point might also be to disbelieve her. But police, who had the opportunity to look for corroboration of her claims, didn't do anything. They didn't have the wit to examine her phone. On her phone was a text with a wish list of abuse from Ian Watkins.
Do you know why? Because she was in a sort of on-off relationship with Ian Watkins,
yes,
wasn't she? She'd got this text message from him, which, as you say, clearly outlined his desire to abuse children.
Yes.
She went to the police. Why didn't they look at that phone then?
She went to the police with a laptop. One police officer said that he or she wasn't qualified to examine a laptop. So whereas you and I can look at a laptop and be alarmed and at least interested when we see a picture of an underage child, he or she, I forget, I think it was one, wasn't interested enough because she wasn't qualified. So Joanne went back again and again and again, 4 times in all. So they didn't ask about her phone, but here was the laptop. And she said, I've got a picture that he sent me. They denied in due course that it was an underage child. It was a child of 4 or 5. During the trial, they claimed it was a child over the age of consent. They were wrong because Joanne didn't count for them.
In the report, it talks about, doesn't it, that they wanted to find the right type of complainant to come along. That's what the IPCC commissioner says, because of her unconventional lifestyle. Do you think this happens in other cases?
It must do. It must do. So in the same way that police now are told to really listen to young children who claim they've been abused by groups of men, what's the difference? So she comes from an unsteady background, not a conventional background. She's not posh. Actually, my interest in this case began when I saw, after Watkins' conviction, she was interviewed on television. She wasn't glorifying in the conviction. She was disturbed, and it was weighing on her. What could she have done more to stop people, to stop children being in danger? Well, she couldn't have done much more than going to that police station 4 times armed with a computer, emailing the Association of Chief Police Officers, and telling everyone. In fact, on one occasion, she said to people who had the care authorities had the duty to look after children, she said to them, if he does something again, it will be on your head, not mine. She was warning them. She was right. She was telling the truth from the start and all the way through.
It's interesting that the report says that he wasn't treated differently in Watkins because he was such an enormous star, because he was famous.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
I don't accept that. I'm cautious about that. I don't think the report, I've had a quick look at it, I don't think the report mentions a memo that I used during the trial. From one police force to another, it said, he is a famous rock star, she is a former escort who's been sectioned. There's the comparison. It's called celebrity privilege. I know about that.
Thank you ever so much for coming in to speak to us today. Very grateful to you.
Criticised for its failure over a 4-year period to investigate allegations about Ian Watkins, the former lead singer of the band Lostprophets, who was convicted in 2013 of 13 child sex offences. An investigation by the Independent Police Complaints Commission has found that South Wales Police failed to act on 8 reports and 3 intelligence logs from 6 different people about Watkins. The IPCC said the force had dismissed allegations made by Watkins' ex-girlfriend and had failed to look at incriminating texts from Watkins on her phone because officers believed she lacked credibility. The Commission says the investigation raised the most disturbing concerns about the way the case was handled. Our reporter Mark Hutchings has the details.
The public face of Ian Watkins was that of a global star. Privately, whose behaviour, in the words of the judge who sentenced him, plumbed the tree for drug offences, came after years of missed opportunities. The police watchdog, the IPCC, found disturbing failures in the way South Wales Police responded to tip-offs. The main complainant was his former partner, Joanne Majelix. The IPCC says a lack of open-mindedness meant she wasn't taken seriously. She wasn't a lone voice. Between December 2008 and June 2012, 6 people raised concerns. It led to 8 reports and 3 intelligence logs. But during that time, Watkins wasn't arrested, questioned, or required to respond to the allegations. South Wales Police admit they failed to listen or investigate properly and say they're truly sorry. A disciplinary hearing has cleared a detective sergeant with the force of gross misconduct. Last week, the IPCC also accused the South Yorkshire force of inaction in investigating Watkins. He's now 4 years into a 29-year jail sentence. Today's report highlights major shortcomings that allowed him to lead a sickening double life for so long. Mark Hutchings, BBC News, Cardiff.
And let's talk to Mark. Good morning to you, Mark. It's almost beyond belief, isn't it, that a force would miss so many opportunities to investigate accusations of this nature. So tell us more about what the IPCC has had to say in this report.
Well, South Wales Police can't say they weren't warned. They certainly were on numerous occasions. And this report highlights repeated failings by the force. Just taking a look at some of the summary in this report, and it says the consequences of the force's failings was arguably that a predatory paedophile offended over an extended period of time. There were a litany of reports, they say, and yet in some instances the force didn't carry out even rudimentary investigations. Now, the main complainant, as I mentioned in my report, there was Joanne Majelix, former partner of Ian Watkins. It was the case, according to the IPCC, that she simply wasn't believed. She took, said she had on her phone messages from Ian Watkins saying how he wanted to abuse children, and yet South Wales Police didn't look at that phone and they wrote her off as a credible witness, as if they were waiting for the perfect witness to come along. In fact, 6 people in all came along to raise concerns about Ian Watkins, but it took nearly 4 years for South Wales Police to do anything about it. Let's hear now from the Commissioner who compiled today's report.
Bias, whether unconscious or conscious, has no place in modern policing. When someone comes forward with such a serious allegation, or indeed any allegation or report, it really shouldn't matter what they look like, who they are, what their lifestyle is, what they do. What's really important is what are they saying. And it's really important that's taken seriously and that some investigative work is done to see if there's any independent evidence to corroborate what they're saying.
Now, this morning we have had a statement from Joanne Majelix saying she feels finally vindicated by this IPCC report. She says it's been a long and difficult road. Some people may remember she was actually taken to court herself, was cleared of possession of indecent images, and she explained that actually what she was doing was compiling a case against Ian Watkins, rather more than South Wales Police were doing. And she says she is now considering legal action against the force. For their part, South Wales Police say they are truly sorry.